Nobody wants to be a legalist. At least I don't think so. I don't think that's a goal for people. Not most people, at least. So sometimes when you're trying to encourage weekly attendance and you want people to be there often, you shy away from that language because you don't want to sound overly legalistic. And I get it. I've been there. I understand it. But you know what? Sometimes when you don't push, you make a big mistake. And I think statistically, we've seen that happen because weekly church attendance has dropped. We talked about some generational patterns a couple episodes ago. So go check out that episode as well. We are not going to get into the details of the generational analysis because we've already done that. But in this episode, we're going to talk about some practices, some best practices. And we have Matt McCraw back on. Matt, what is your title? I know I'm the president of Church Answers. What is your title of Church Answers?
You know, Sam, I'm not quite sure. But
I don't know.
I help a lot with partnerships, consulting, and certifications. I do know that.
And you manage all the sponsorships too.
Yes. Yeah. Partnerships, sponsorships. And occasionally I'll appear on a podcast. Here I am.
Yeah. Or write an article. So, all right. So here's the thing. Matt's great.
Yeah.
If you don't know Matt, he's at First Baptist Bartow in Florida. Been on our team for quite some time. Yeah. He's a bit of a infrequent. You're infrequent co-host, but around a lot behind the scenes. You're at the webinars. You do a ton. And the dean of Church Answers University as well. Absolutely. And
I'll do whatever you ask me to do, Sam.
Well, every good team has that utility player. Like you're the Ben Zobrist of Church Answers, and that is a deep cut when it comes to baseball terminology. So I don't know if you remember Ben Zobrist or not.
Yeah, I remember the name. I can tell you though, I've never been called that before.
It's in my world. That's a very high compliment because he was one of my favorite players. Eventually
what can I say? I'm honored.
Yeah, eventually we ended up playing for the Cubs, winning a World Series, and I believe he was the MVP of the World Series that year. So, you are our MVP of the World Series that is Church Answers. But hey, we've got some good stuff to talk about in this episode when it comes to encouraging weekly church attendance. Before we jump into the episode, want to thank our sponsor, Tyndale. They've been a longtime sponsor, longtime supporter of Church Answers and specifically Rainer on Leadership. We love partnering with them for any number of reasons. Obviously, you can go check out their website and just see all of their resources, but we want to specifically direct you to the New Living Translation. It's what I preach from. Absolutely love this translation. You can find all of the Bibles at newlivingtranslation.com. And as well as if you're not familiar with the New Living Translation, it's definitely one you need to be familiar with. It's on the rise. More and more people are using it because of its readability. But often what's underestimated with the New Living is that this is one of the more accurate translations. You know, one of my favorite little snippets of translation philosophy that I absolutely love about the New Living Translation, Matt? Can you guess what I particularly like?
You'll have to. No, I don't know.
I totally put you on the spot.
Yeah,
we didn't talk about anything.
Something about dynamic equivalence.
No. Those are marketing terms, by the way. They're like formal equivalence, dynamic equivalence, optimal. Like, wow, you just happen to be the one translation that's optimal. Like that is not scientific language, by the way, people. That is marketing language. And if you are parading that around, you are getting sucked into the marketing machine. Not that it's bad, not that it's untrue. It's just marketing language. No, you know what I love about the New Living? I love that they translate the word euangelion as good news.
There you go.
Instead of gospel. No problem with the word gospel, certainly.
Sure.
That is an Old English. It's derived from the Old English word. It is not a literal or technical translation. They actually do good news, which I just like. I just like that. I think that's a little snippet of the New Living that is often underestimated. It's highly accurate, and sometimes more accurate than some of the other translations. But that's just my opinion.
It's great.
Anyway, go check them out. newlivingtranslation.com. Okay, so we discussed this a little bit last week. The core of attendance has dropped slightly since 2016, but if you go all the way back to 2008, this is the case. So the weekly core, that the number of people that come every week is down from 31% in 2008 to 25% today. So, of all the people in the nation, like 25% are attending on a weekly basis, which in my view is pretty good. It is down, it is declining, but this idea that Christianity is dead in the United States is a false narrative. Like there is still, we are still a highly religious society with a lot of people going to church relative to other places in the world. I understand it's on the decline. I understand it's not where it used to be, but let's at least paint a little brighter picture here. It's not as bad as some people make it out to be. What say you, Matt?
Yeah, I agree. And I especially, I think in our community, I can speak well about our community because I've been here a little while now. I have sensed that when people from our community are exposed to our church or other healthy churches, they really like what they see. They really like the experience. So I think there is a great need for people in our culture to be a part of local churches, particularly healthy local churches. And I think there's great opportunity for a resurgence in attendance in churches for those that are committed to loving others well in the name of Jesus.
So the real problem is those who never attend. That has risen almost 14 points from 20% to 34% over the same period, 2008 to 2024. And by the way, we just don't have 2025 data yet because we're still in 2025. So that's why the 2024 data. So the real question is, what do we do about this? We want to encourage people to attend more. You don't want to be a legalist. So it's not just attend because I said so. It's not just attend because I want the numbers to look good. It's not attend because, I want to preach to you. This is what's good for people's souls. This idea that, you need people around you, a system of accountability, people to encourage you. People who know you well, that can tell when something's off, sometimes even before you see it in yourself. The only way you are going to get that is being regular with a group of people that care about you. Where else are you going to get that but the church?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I grew up in a church that was just coming out of legalism when I was a kid. So it wasn't legalistic for my generation, but it just come out of that. And, but even as I was in youth ministry and things like that, I often viewed, rightly or wrongly, church as a list of rules, and it was legalistic in that sense. I think now churches are starting to understand it's not about legalism. It's about God's design for people and individuals and churches. And God has designed us. He has literally created us with the need to be in a local church, in a community of believers. It is good for our soul, our lives, to be a part of that. And so it's important that we as church leaders help people to see that. It's not a list of rules. It is what is good for you as a follower of Jesus to be a part of a local community.
Do you go to church when you're on vacation?
So I don't always go to church. Thanks for putting me on the spot there,
Sam.
So,
wrong answer. Wrong.
Yeah. I know you are well established. The whole Rayner family is well established for always going to church on vacation. I've heard you speak of that. So here's my response to that. I'm committed to my local church, but not to every local church.
Fair enough. I just thought I'd put you on this. I didn't know what your answer would be.
Yeah, sometimes we do. Seriously, sometimes we do. Sometimes we don't. The last time I was out on a Sunday, I joined my good friend, Aaron Philippone, online at Indian Rocks Church. I know you know Aaron. They're in Largo.
Dude, by the way, you want to see a church that's really doing well, that's kind of flying under the radar a bit? Indian Rocks, no doubt. Aaron Philippone, great church, great pastor.
I joined them online last Sunday. I was out. The last time I was out. So.
Cool. Yeah, for me to lord that over somebody would be legalism, right? So the reason I asked the question,
we're going the other direction, not legalism.
Right? Yeah, and I get that, but I love me some church. I love me some awkwardness. When I'm on vacation, I will actually pick like a church that I think maybe not where they need to be, just to feel the awkwardness, because I just love people.
And on a practical level, you can learn a lot by going to another church if you're a church leader. That's the opportunity. Yeah.
That's true. If you're not weird like me, you may actually go to a healthy church that you know is a healthy church and learn a little bit about what's going on there.
Sometimes learn what not to do. It just depends on the church.
Yeah. Yeah. So churches, and I see this in my kids because my kids are doing so well. And I realize a lot of our listeners are trying to shepherd or lead churches that aren't healthy. They like need lots of revitalization. They may even be a bit caustic or perhaps toxic. So I feel for you. I've been there, know what that's like. But I see it in my kids, like when I'm, part of a healthy church. Um, like today, my two daughters are going out. They're going out with friends, and I ask, they say, "Hey, we're going to go hang out with friends." Okay, because my daughter's 15. She's got some 16-year-old friends, and they're leaving. And I'm like, "Who is driving? Who is driving?" And it's okay. And I know the person who's driving. Okay, we're good, because I know her family. Her dad is the chair of deacons, and I trust them. How do I get to that point? Well, the only way I get to that point is just being regular with a group of people, being in faithful attendance of a local church. And I know it's my job. I'm the pastor, but the principle applies to anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, I think one of the things that we've tried to do well at our church, and I think that people are starting to recognize in our church, we have a long way to go in a lot of areas. By God's grace, we've improved in some areas. But one of the things where we're really doing well is creating a family atmosphere. We consider our church a family. And I don't mean just that we're bringing in families. I mean, praise God, we're doing that. But I mean that the single boomer woman can come to our church and feel like this is my family. And we use that language even. And I really do think God has blessed us in that regard. And that really helps with attendance at our church when someone comes and they feel like family, or when they discover, hey, I may not be a part of this family, but it looks like it is a family, and maybe I can be a part of this family.
So let me ask you a question. There's a bit of a dust up online on Twitter, especially. I know that shocks anyone listening. Like, what?
Yeah.
There was a bit of controversy on X, as it's now called. Yeah, and it was over the cancellation of July 4th, or like the July 4th week, with the church. I'm not going to name the church because, for all I know, they're a great church, and it's just something they did. And they may have a good reason, at least in their brain, as to why they did it. But I've seen it before, where July 4th, first Sunday of the new year, whatever it is, the church decides not to gather that Sunday. Now, because I don't know these situations, I don't want to speak into any specifics, like with these churches. There may have been a very good reason for them to do that. And for all I know, it was a one-time thing for some reason. But I don't like it. Now, I don't want to be a legalist either, right? So, but I cannot imagine canceling the gathering of the saints for any reason. We've only done it when a hurricane was right on top of us, and you couldn't get out. Everyone was batting down the hatches, hurricane was hitting. That's the only time we've ever canceled, apart from, some serious catastrophe. I mean, how do you feel about that? I don't like it. I understand why some churches may do it, spend time with your family, but it's like, but the church is my family. I should be spending time with them at the weekly gathering. Yay or nay? Where are you on this, Matt?
I'm a big yay. I agree with you 100%. We should not cancel. I'll tell you what really, I'd lean that way anyhow. But when we went through COVID pandemic, when we went through the closures, when we finally gathered back, it was so joyful to gather back. And, we will cancel Sunday evening, Wednesday evening, small groups, but that corporate worship service, the main worship service, I told one of our staff members the other day, I said, I don't want to ever cancel again. Now, if we have a hurricane right on top of us, I'm in Florida like you are, then maybe we have to. But if those walls are standing, I don't even care if we have power. If we can gather, I want to gather. Just missing my church family for so long during early COVID, it really just solidified in my heart the need to gather, to not forsake the assembling together of one another.
I feel the same way as you do, and we canceled for a very short time. And I even look back on that, and at the time that we made the decision, we had no idea what was going on.
Sure.
We didn't want people to die or whatever. And looking back, knowing what I know now, I'm like, would you have made a different decision? Absolutely, I would have made a different decision. I wouldn't have closed the church. So like you, I kind of learned, and maybe that's why I feel so strongly about this when a church decides to cancel like the first Sunday of the new year or whatever. And I'm like, no, like we were all but forced. A lot of churches in other states were basically forced to close by the government. And I understand the debate about that. I'm not necessarily looking to get into a political discussion here, but man, like I didn't like it. And I look back and I'm like, I wish I hadn't closed. I made the decision that I could at the time with the information I had, and we weren't closed that long at all. We very quickly reopened with full programming. But yeah, I think that's probably why I feel so strongly about this is because of COVID.
Yeah, definitely. I know that it just changed my heart. I mean, as sad as all that was, mostly because of the confusion of the time, there was so much joy in my heart that first Sunday we gathered back, and all those who were there wanted to be there. I mean, it was really a special time for the gathering of the saints at that we came back on Father's Day. That was our first day back, and it was just such a joyful time for us.
So let's carry forth some ideas from the last episode on attendance. It's probably a couple episodes back. Sometimes we record these and then we decide when we air the date. So, but the previous couple episodes where we talked about generational attendance patterns. This very much applies to children. So if you come once a month and you bring your children once a month, the likelihood of your children like being weekly is really, 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 really low. The only way for your legacy of faith to carry forth with healthy attendance patterns is for you to be frequent. By frequent, I mean weekly. Because if you teach your children that this is kind of an optional thing, like once a month to me is not good enough, they're going to lean away from the church, not into the church, most of them. So I would just encourage any parents that are listening to this who may be debating, like, what is a healthy attendance pattern at churches? If you have a healthy church, I would highly encourage you to be weekly. Now, if you go on vacation, something like that, hey, we're on spring break, I totally understand that. I'm certainly no legalist. Every time the doors are open, you got to be here. I don't want to push that narrative. But if you're once a month, 12 times a year, you are not going to have spiritually mature children. You're just not.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I saw this when I was a youth pastor. I was a youth pastor for many years, and I saw that those who were closest to Jesus, in my estimation, and those who were most involved in the church, and those who were serving the most in different ways, those, quite frankly, who are doing well now as adults were those who were frequent in their attendance at the church, those teenagers then who are adults now. And so I agree with that wholeheartedly. And this is something I say to my church, again, not legalism, but ask yourself, do you want to be closer to Jesus or farther away from Jesus? If you want to be closer to Jesus, it makes sense to gather with his people more often. It's not a guaranteed one-for-one correlation, but it helps to be closer to Jesus when you're closer to his bride, the church.
One other thing that I'll mention is just giving patterns. I hate to be overly pragmatic with this, but when you are infrequent with your attendance, you tend to be infrequent with your giving as well. This is really all of the spiritual disciplines that get impacted by they're all like downstream of attendance. Let me just say that. You could make an argument that someone who's spiritually mature and doing great and they don't come to church all that frequently. Okay, that's the exception. And particularly around the giving side of this, I would just say Church Growth Services is a great partner for you to think. If you're like, hey, how do I do this in an appropriate way? I don't know who gives what. I don't have a visibility into that, which is a lot of pastors and church leaders. We've got a link in the show notes. They're giving away a free campaign capacity analysis, which is a great exercise for you to do. But just generally, if you're looking to increase a generosity culture, go check out Church Growth Services, because your giving, as people come less frequently, your giving will be impacted by that, and Church Growth Services can help you with it. All right, last thing. Let's talk about Bible knowledge. Everything's downstream of church attendance, right? If you go to school, like you're a fifth grader, and I guess the word's truant. Is that the right word? Truancy. You're only there once a week. I think I have that right. You're there once a week. You're in school once a week. You're not going to learn, because there's a compounding effect of learning, right? And there's the idea of repetition. There's an old saying, repetition is the mother of learning. How do kids grow in their knowledge base? How do they learn to read? How do they learn math? How do they learn history? How do they learn anything? Well, there's this regular rhythm, this regular sort of pattern in their life, daily study. And I know pedagogy is a highly debated topic and how children learn and what you need to teach them. But I think we can all agree that if you're only practicing that once a week, then you're not going to learn whatever method you're using. You're not going to learn a lot. It's the same with Bible knowledge. It's the same with, spiritual maturity. If you're only doing church like once a month, you're just not going to grow. If you're only doing school once a week as a kid, you're just not going to learn. You're not going to grow. You'll get something, but it's not going to be enough because there is this compounding effect. Now, how did I learn this about the Bible? At what point did you learn that Ezekiel was a prophet or Jeremiah was a prophet and where that is in the Bible? Like, I have no idea. I have no idea when I learned. I can't point to a specific time. It was just something I absorbed over time. And that's how most people grow spiritually. And that's why this world is largely biblically illiterate, particularly church people, is because they're not frequent enough.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Even with folks that come every week, it's still a challenge to retain a lot of what is taught in the local church. And so you're coming once a month or once every other month. I mean, it's almost impossible to retain that. You really see this as a pastor, a church leader, when someone comes and asks a deep theological question or a biblical question. It's the exact same thing you taught on 2 weeks ago. You're like, were you there? I just taught on this topic in detail. And so it's certainly the more you come, the more you're part of your church family, not just in the worship service, but in small groups, discipleship groups, the more you can take in that. You're exactly right. We need that repetition. We need that reinforcement. We need those reminders of what we're learning in God's word. And we need God's word to help us to live our daily lives. And so, again, it goes back to what I said earlier. God designed us to have this. And if we don't have it, then we are losing out on being all that God created us to be.
Well, good stuff from Matt McCraw. Thanks for being on the show. We'll have to bring him back at some point when we free him up. We keep you quite busy, my friend, with all the other things at Church Answers. But he's at First Bartow, doing a great job over there. If you want to look him up online, you should. Just a good story of a legit revitalization. Like a real revitalization, like a church that you're like, where are we going to do? What are we going to do this? What are we going to do with this? And like, you figured it out. It's still got a long way to go. We do too, of course. But for those of you who are listening and you're like, I'm one of those just typical established churches. Matt's done a good job. So you should definitely look him up at First Bartow. You should also look up Upward, our sponsor. Very grateful for Upward. Start prepping for 2026. Now is the time. How are you going to do outreach? How are you going to allocate resources for this? What is going to be the impact of those resources? You won't get any greater impact than Upward. They have a variety of sports programs. They've got pickleball now. They've got running. Talked about running in a previous episode. So if you are interested, particularly in pickleball, just go to upward.org/pickleball. Or if you want to give us credit, which is great, because then they know that you came from the show, upward.org/church answers. So it'd really do us a big favor if you're able to click the link just in the show notes, go click it. Just look at it. I'm not even telling you you've got to sign up. But with pickleball, by the way, they're giving away net sets. So there are 200 available. They've opened up some more. Go get your free net set, and you can learn how to do that at upward.org/pickleball. Thanks again for tuning in to today's episode of Rainer on Leadership. Give us a thumbs up on the YouTubers. Rate, review, subscribe, all the things. You know what to do. Help us out. Share the show. We'll see you next week.